To all who come to this happy place, welcome.
During the early days for the Haunted Mansion, when Ken Anderson was still sketching up ideas for the new attraction, he had an idea for an attic scene. The scene was to contain fluttering bats and spiders' webs that the doom buggies would ride through and would brush up against the faces of guests. A little bit of sensory to add to the audio and visual horror of the ride was pretty sweet in my opinion, but once children realized they were just strings hanging from the ceiling, they pulled them down. So no more spiderwebs for us. But the centerpiece of the attic scene, the reason people get chills when they ride through that particular attic, is the bride, inspired by this alleged photograph of the brown lady at Raynham Hall. I showed it earlier on in this series, and it's often cited as one of the most famous ghost photographs of all time. Is it an actual photograph of an actual ghost? Probably not, but it's still pretty spooky. Compare that photograph with this concept art done by Ken Anderson, and you can kind of see the similarities start to pop up. Some years later, when Mark Davis was given creative control of the Haunted Mansion, he drew up this piece of concept art inspired by Ken Anderson's, except instead of holding a lantern, she's holding a candle and a cat for some reason. Eventually, Mark Davis decided to revisit his concept art for the bride and switched out the cat for a little doggy and gave the bride a dark face with glowing eyeballs and, of course, the beating heart. Eventually, the dog was nixed altogether and Disney was left with the beating heart bride. Although me referring to her as the beating heart bride isn't really accurate, because at this point she wasn't a bride. Like little Leota before her, she was originally wearing a white cloak. Although the story of the mansion pretty much always had something to do with a wedding. Bartholomew Gore's bride Priscilla, the ghostly wedding party happening at Bloodmere Manor, and a generic wedding party happening in a haunted house involving movie monsters like Dracula and Frankenstein, some sort of bride was pretty much always present in the Haunted Mansion story. And on opening day in 1969, the beating heart bride was present in the attic scene. Although she wasn't where she is these days, she was a little bit further to the left, you know where the ghostly piano is at Disneyland? That's basically exactly where she was. But this story also ties into my second favorite ghost in the Haunted Mansion, the Hatbox Ghost. Because you see, he was there on opening day too, but his effect didn't really work out. 1 week after the attraction opened, they removed the Hatbox Ghost from the ride and replaced him with the bride. She sat on the right side of the track, sort of in front of where the Hatbox Ghost is today. And then in the year 2006, when they changed the beating heart bride to the Black Widow bride, better known as Constance, she jumped the track to the left side, where she resides to this day. So tell me, what is your favorite version of the attic bride from the Haunted Mansion? Do you prefer the beating heart bride, or do you prefer Constance Hatchaway? Let me know down in the comments below, and I will see you all a little later.